Can you turn a passion into a seven-figure business? Can you turn a strong interest or a curiosity into something that makes millions of dollars? I'm going to be joined by one of my former students at capitalism.com who did exactly that. What came up in this conversation was the theme that when Andy was really energetic about what he was doing, he made more money. And the second that he felt disinterested or burnt out in what he was doing, the more that money started to go away. Oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we look for the thing. We're looking for the strategy. We're looking for the right niche or the right product, the right way to do things. And that's because we want the result so much that we don't want to mess it up. But I've experienced it enough times to know that this is true. You are the niche. You are the business. Your energy, your excitement level, your curiosity is the thing that drives the business. And the more that you can stay in that zone, the faster you're probably going to grow. So I sat down with Andy to unpack exactly how he turned a wild passion, this interest for a video game, into a seven-figure business. Because if Andy can turn something so niche as knives from a video game into a seven-figure business, then there's a pretty good chance that the thing that you're excited about or the thing that brings you genuine interest and brings up curiosity in you has the potential to be a seven-figure business too. If you need help creating a structure for how to do that, we have free resources in the description of this video that will help you get off on the right foot. But something I wish someone had told me is that the structures for how to build businesses can be very helpful frameworks. But ultimately, what will determine your enjoyment and your fulfillment is how much energy, creativity, and excitement you bring into those frameworks, because that is what you project out into the marketplace and into the world.
So I sent this email to my list saying, are you a lurker? Because I have all of these people on my list who have followed my work for years, built multi-million-dollar businesses, and I never hear from them, ever. Like they listen to the podcast, they watch me on YouTube, and you reached out. But we had a relationship several years ago, but I didn't hear what had happened in the few years since we had last spoken. Although you come to Capcom and we catch up there. But when I met you, you were running this knives business, doing like $4 million a year, not really even knowing how it happened. You just kind of fell into this knives business. Why don't you tell the story about how that business came to be and how you took it to 4 million, which is kind of where we met?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I had been starting businesses for a while, like lots of failures, like everybody when you first start. And then
what kind of businesses?
Mostly, so the first main area I started making money online was with eBay, actually. So this was kind of like before Amazon. And I never really got into Amazon, to be honest. It was like I was selling on eBay, and I thought you had to be like a big company to sell on Amazon. I didn't realize you could just sell on there. But I started with eBay, and I was just like buying and like reselling stuff that was like trending. So it'd be like some hats or socks or whatever was popular. And it would last, it'd be like fads that last for like short periods of time. And then, so I got really familiar with selling like physical product online and all that. And then, as far as starting the knives, it was really
what was like the biggest cash cow thing that you flipped on eBay?
It was the phone cases. Those were like
phone cases.
Yeah. Like, phone cases were by far the most popular. So like selling like premium cases. Cause at the time it was like, there was like OtterBox and there was another one was called like Life Proof were like the two most popular, but they were like $100, $200, And so you could sell ones that were like the same quality for like $50.
They were like knockoffs of OtterBox and
kind of. I mean, there were people selling knockoffs, of course. Yeah,
I don't mean knockoffs like fake OtterBoxes, but you were selling like the same thing, basically a white labeled version of OtterBox, but at a lower price.
Exactly. And like eBay, like especially at the time, being such a new entrepreneur, you just think like I got to have a low price, so you're like So it's like, oh, I'll get like the same quality product and just sell it at a cheaper price. But that just becomes a race to the bottom,
Right.
as you know.
Right.
So it never lasts.
So you were just flipping whatever you could, making
Yes.
cash.
Yes.
And you were how old?
This was in high school and college.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like 18 to 20-ish.
Okay. So you learned you could wholesale things and then put them on eBay and flip them. And then what led to the knives?
Yeah, so the knives, which at the time, like I actually knew nothing about knives. I didn't even know that there was like people were collect knives and all this stuff. It's actually because I play a ton of video games, and Counter-Strike's one of my favorite games. And that's the game I'm actually playing right now the most. I'm like addicted again, playing it all the time. But in that game, they have really cool knives, and it's like it's a big part of the culture around skins. So like Counter-Strike was one of the first games to actually make skins really popular, and skins are just like the cosmetic finishes on the weapons and the knives, for example. And yeah, in the game, the knives are just like really highly desired. They're really cool. Yeah, if you have a knife, people give you compliments or they talk trash or whatever, like
And
it's
these are knives in the game, right?
yeah, so these are like digital knives in the game, and then there's like artwork on the like blade and handle and stuff.
Okay.
And that's what the skin is. The skin is like these different ones. So there's like ruby, sapphire, like different.
So there's this whole subculture of people who play Counter-Strike that are complimenting each other over their digital knives. If this isn't an omen for what's going to happen in the future when we're all living in VR
Yeah.
or complimenting each other, I like your digital pants.
Yeah.
So you say, what if I sell these in the real world?
Exactly. Yeah. It was like, these would be cool if they could be made, and then it was actually the idea, like I was on a camping trip with some friends and someone like stabbed a knife into the table. And I was like, that kind of looks like a CSGO knife. And then that's when it really clicked. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, what if that really was? So then I started looking into it. I actually came up with the idea like a year before I started the business because I just thought it was like not that great of an idea. I was like, whatever. And then it was like a year later. I had a friend that wanted to learn how I was making money on eBay, and I was like, oh, I could like create a training course on this. So, and then like sell it or something. So then I was like, how about I teach you, we'll record the sessions and then I'll just like make a course out of it. And on the first session, I realized I hadn't actually sourced product in a long time because I was just kind of like repeat selling stuff. And so I was like, hey man, actually we should do this like another time. I need to refresh. So I just took the knife idea I had and just used that as an example. And when I did that, I found that there was actually one other seller, like a really small seller that was selling really crappy versions of the knives, like had the idea kind of, it was clear they didn't play the game and they were just kind of like it wasn't really all there. But I saw like on eBay, they were selling like crazy because you can see like the sold data. And I was like, holy crap, like I could do this a million times better and like crush it. So that was where like everything just clicked. I was like, sorry, dude, I'm going to come back to this training stuff later. I got to build this business. And that was really where it all started.
So you went and had some prototypes made for knives that you thought would represent the game well, that you thought would be better than what you saw the competition, which was one dude doing, and you put them for sale. Do you sell them on eBay then?
It's funny because I actually did list them on eBay like initially, but that really wasn't the plan. The plan, was very much to build a brand. So I created, a brand that would resonate well with the audience and focused on influencer marketing. And I was trying to drive everyone to my site.
These are influencers, like Counter-Strike influencers?
Yeah.
Okay, there is an entire subculture around this game.
Oh yeah.
So these are streamers who are playing the game.
Yeah,
and you send them knives. They get knives in the mail.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a mix, like a lot of streamers. Yeah. At the time, it was like this was 2015, so there wasn't much competition with a lot of these influencers. So it was really easy. We just send out the knives. I mean, people loved the product so much that it made it so easy for us.
Yeah. You went to $4 million in sales in what time frame?
It was 3 years. So the first year was like something like 1.2 maybe. Second year was like maybe 2.5, and then third year was like 4. Yeah.
Were you freaking out at this point?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I freaked out the most just when I saw the eBay sales, like at the very start. Like that was actually probably the highest high I had was before I had even started anything. Because I was just like, I could see it all so clearly, and I was so excited to do it all. Not just because I knew it'd make money, but I also like, I loved it. Like I love the game. I was so passionate about the product. Like I was so ready to just build it. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
So that 4 million in 3 years, you were taking sales on your own website. There's no Amazon. You had your eBay presence, but most of the traffic was going to your website.
Yeah, eBay was like 1% maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was most of the traffic that you were getting from the influencers and then just kind of the organic swell of this community?
100%.
Tell me a little bit about that, because that's unique in our space, right? We know it happens, but to get into what is really a niche market.
Yeah.
I mean, in your world, it might be a big world, but to me, I'm like, there's a whole subculture here.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what it was like to get into that community and then have that spread so quickly.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, honestly, because I actually like when I first got the inventory. So when we first got samples, they looked like really good, and then when we got the initial knives, and it was like 1,200 knives, and I was all in at the time. That was all the money I had, between knives and like, yeah, it's just mainly inventory. Yeah, because I bought those initial knives and then I ordered more shortly after. But when I first got the inventory, actually, there was like almost every unit was defective. So like the paint wasn't covering the edges, and it was like bleeding like wrong. It was messed up. Yeah, and I was like actually pretty stressed because I had already pre-sold like all of them. And so that's like those scenarios as an entrepreneur where you're like, crap, like, do I send these out or do I just refund everyone? And it can feel very like fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
But it's like good to take a step back and be like, okay, there's pretty much always a way you can get the best of both worlds, right? So like, how do I do this? Well, I didn't say anything, and I just sent the product out, and I figured, okay, if anyone complains, I'll just refund them. They can keep the knife. Like, and amazingly, nobody complained. So like literally nobody. And I think it was because the product was just so new and so exciting that people were willing to accept the defect, like on the edge.
You can't get away with that in year 3.
No.
You might be able to get away with that in the early stages.
Absolutely.
But you just glossed over this idea that you pre-sold 1,200 units right out of the gate. What the heck happened there?
Yeah, that was just me sending the samples out to a few influencers. And then, I just had the listings up on the side. I said it'll ship in like 3 to 4 weeks. Because the inventory was coming from overseas, importing. And it just sold out. So then I took that money. I was already like double all in because I took that money, already put another inventory order, and then finally got the original ones. I was like, oh crap.
So when you sent this out to influencers, were these pretty big influencers, or is the community just that tightly gelled together that when one person discovers it, there's a snowball effect?
Yeah, it is tight, but it's also fragmented. It really wasn't that big of influencers at first. But I did target influencers that had like quality audiences. Yeah. So
small but responsive audiences. Yeah. That's the game, man. I mean, if you can find those, the people who have, a few thousand followers and but people are engaged, or that person's on the rise in that community, that is the holy grail right there. So you found a few of those. There's not a whole lot of people sponsoring video gamers, at least back then.
No,
right?
Yeah, there wasn't.
And so you have a new product that goes to that market, and you just have this website that says it'll ship in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Give me your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guessing that you didn't have the greatest copy in the world.
No, certainly not.
here's the product.
Yeah.
Do you want it?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a visual product, right? So like good product photos, and that was about it. Like the other thing is like the site, like I said, the brand aesthetic and stuff. Like like I'm from that audience. I know how it should feel. So I think even though we were a brand new company and everything, we looked legit. We looked like we fit right in, so there's all that. But
So you pre-sell these 1,200 units and then you double down and you order more and the sales continue
yeah.
at this point. So
Yeah.
people are talking about it, they're posting about it, and the community is just going crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. What mainly happened was actually like because we had a good amount of customers, but like 1,200 word of mouth is like okay something, but it was actually mainly the other influencers because like an influencer would post it and then other ones would see it and it was just this snowball of influencers really. And then trying to keep up with inventory was like the main challenge.
Well, there's something so freeing when you realize that if you just make a great product for a person, for a core customer that wants to be served in some way, you really don't have any competition, which is what I think when you're the eBay flipper and you're selling, well, you're selling phone cases, or you're the Amazon reseller, or you're the Amazon brand that's selling the same thing as everybody else, you don't get this concept because it feels riskier. But then when you come out with something new that's specific for a person, you've never seen how the audience will take it and just run with it and tell everybody about it, especially when your product has some coolness factor to it. And that's when real brands start to break out. So, and the rise from pre-selling 1,200 units to $4 million 3 years later, did you have a real strategy for growing the business, or was this all just wildfire and you're trying to keep up with everything?
Yeah, it was wildfire trying to keep up. Being a very inexperienced entrepreneur, not understanding like what size of a team I should have, stuff like this, and not having experience managing a team at all or hiring, trying to do everything myself, right? So it's like at first it's like perfectionism. I want to do everything myself, all that. And then hiring, but I had the syndrome of it's called like entrepreneur and 1,000 helpers, where you don't delegate well. Everybody's always just coming to you asking for the answer, right? And it was like it became like when I started it was all about the product and like these big promotions, and then my day to day just became answering a million emails. Like I got severely burnt out. I didn't realize like how burnt out I was until way after the fact. But yeah, like we had that growth in 3 years, but it was no longer fun to me. Like I didn't have a clear vision for what we were going to do next. I didn't like know how I was going to innovate on the product. I didn't know, like I was just so overwhelmed, honestly. And it was hard for me to like work.
You're just treading water at that point, right? You're just
yeah.
like trying to figure out how to swim and stay above water. At some point, you realize you need to partner with somebody or you need to exit. So, and I know you went through some sort of an acquisition, but I don't know all the details about that. So what can you share about selling the business or getting out of the business?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So actually, now that I think about it, I guess we had hit the 4 million in 2 years, because year 3 was really where the business started to decline. It was directly correlated with like my energy level was crazy. So it was like when I was all amped up with the business, it was like growth, growth, growth. And then as I started to like top out, we started topping out. And then as I went into that burnout mode, like we were just declining.
Yeah.
And again, it's like not delegating. It's like being bad at hiring, but also being bad at like leading people and all that. And then then it goes into like, I was ready to just close it down, which sounds crazy to me now, because it's like the business was still doing, probably like 150, 200K a month, or probably 150 a month in revenue. But I was ready to just walk from it all, because I just I was so burnt out. Like it was extreme. Like
I remember you were just done.
I was
you were just
so
like,
done.
over it. I don't want this life.
Yeah.
I need something else. This isn't worth it to me anymore. I remember that.
So I fire saled the company for 1x multiple and
Of revenue or of profit?
of let me think, of profit. Yeah.
Okay. So a very modest
Yes.
exit. You basically were just like, take this thing.
Yeah. Just that, and then the inventory, like, and just cashed out and was like so happy to be done with it. Like, it was way more of a life choice than like a logical strategic business exit.
And you sold it to someone in our community, if I remember correctly. Like you met
Correct.
at one of our events.
Yes.
And that person was looking to buy businesses.
Correct.
You were looking to get rid of this problem child because you're thinking
Yeah.
about just closing it down.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll buy it.
It was crazy actually, because I heard him talking to someone else, and he like was listing what he is looking for in a business. And I was just like, dude, that's literally like my business, what you're talking about, like Shopify, like email lists, like like all these, checkpoints he wanted. And I was honest with him. I told him like, I'm super burnt out. And I genuinely believed like if someone just came in with energy, they could bring this thing back, to life.
So let's pause here, because this idea of burnout that Andy is referring to is this word that's often thrown around in our entrepreneurial circles that almost doesn't mean anything. But this is such a beautiful case study of what burnout really is and what causes burnout. I have a friend here in Austin. His name is Najit Navalka. And Ajit says that burnout comes from doing things that you find unmeaningful. Burnout is not the doing of too many things. It's the doing of things that are not meaningful. It's actually a lack of doing meaningful things. It's drowning out the things that you find energy rich with just more activity. And how often as entrepreneurs do we do that? Because we think that it's going to lead to a different result. But in Andy's case, and I have seen this many times with entrepreneurs, in this case, it was actually coming back to the meaning, coming back to the joy that gave him the fuel to be able to grow this business in the first place. What happened when Andy lost that? He ended up just selling the business for pennies on the dollar, almost scrapping it. And so in this case, the most profitable activity that Andy could do was be protective of his energy, his joy, his excitement, because that's the fuel that built the business in the first place.
So when you're in this state, you're starting to get ideas about the business that you sold 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Did you have the opportunity to buy it back, or was that on the table at that point?
No, not necessarily, but it was something that had come up. It was actually only like a few months after I sold the business, like 6 months after I sold it, I started thinking, wait, do I want to buy it back?
Yeah,
like I started thinking
Yeah,
that.
because you're no longer draining the battery.
Yeah. And it would just come up in my head. I'd feel that way for like a week, and then I'd be like, I really don't want to deal with that. And then it was in the back of my mind. I had ideas. I came up with a really innovative idea about a year after I sold it, but I was like, oh, that's impossible. It's not practical. All that sort of thinking. It's all the mind stuff. And then, I was on that trip, and that was in March. And actually, yeah, because I had called him before I flew out
the new
there.
owner.
The previous owner, I had called him before I flew out there. I actually called him and kickstarted it, actually. So it was already in motion. So yeah,
you called and you're like, I'm thinking about I might want to buy the business back.
Yeah.
And he says
he was ready to he was done with it. Yeah.
So he was in the same state you were.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
He had a few other businesses too, and one of them was doing really well. So mine was just kind of like on the sideline. Yeah. So he was just like, yeah. And yeah.
So you decide to buy it back while you're in this state.
Yeah.
Is any part of you thinking, what if I buy it back and I drain myself again?
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking over the years, was that concern. But I would say it was because of that just intuition. That was like, I wasn't worried about that. I was like, it's like, I have to do this. Like, it literally feels like my purpose.
You closed on the business to buy it back when?
This was in April, like April 24th.
So just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So what has happened? First of all, did you buy it back for more or less than you sold it for?
For less.
Yeah, I can relate to this.
Yeah.
I bought my business back for 3 cents on the dollar versus what I sold it for.
Mine was like 10 cents.
What was your turnaround plan to take it from the value from which you bought it to
Mhm.
this thing that matches what's in your mind,
Yeah.
spirit, body, heart.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and this is also what's different now than before. So like before, if I were to tell you a turnaround plan, it would be very like statistical, like numbers and like, margin this, profit this, whatever. But now it's just like our turnaround plan is literally to just continue innovating on the product until we actually create something like truly unique and special. And then once we get there, then literally just promote it in the right places and then just see how it's received. Like that's literally it.
So you want to do it for the doing of
Yeah,
it.
for the creativity. I'm completely driven by the creativity. Yeah.
Creativity in the product, the creativity in the process. What does that mean?
Yeah. So like the core the core thing that like my business does is right the skins on the knives, right? So like the artwork and stuff. And I'm innovating like new ways to do that. And so with that comes like as we develop these new capabilities on how we can, treat the knives, do these different colors, these sorts of things, like I'm just opening up this like big like tool set essentially of it's almost like a big Photoshop in a way of like making real knives, right? So it's like right now everything is like setting up this like essentially like quote unquote like creative like studio essentially. And then like as that's like built out, now I get to just be creative. I get to just like for example, like we might have a certain type of artwork and like certain parts of it I want to do like different color treatments or like engravings or finishes, like all kinds of stuff. I'm trying not to say stuff that's like new that I'm working on, but um it's like that's what I'm super excited by. Yeah, it is the process, like not the process now. The process now kind of sucks because it's like setting it all up,
Yeah.
But once
You're
it
back in the
is,
grind.
yeah, it's the grind.
You're back in the grind of creating something that you're not quite sure is going to work.
Yeah, there's no certainty at all, but other than just the intuition. The intuition's like it's already done. Like it's already there. And like those 4.5 years off is like as an entrepreneur, like I already know like I'm more than capable today. Like I'm probably like a 20 million a year type entrepreneur, but I don't like have those
You're
results to
yeah,
show.
yeah.
But I already know that I'm there, like developmentally wise. Um and but at the same time it's like so like I see myself taking this business there, but I'm really not fixated on that at all. Like I'm really way more focused on just the creativity around it. Like that's what really like whenever I'm feeling like, oh, this grind kind of sucks, it's like I literally just look at some of the designs we've come up with, like stuff that's not yet, we're not able to do yet, but like I believe we will get there. And then that's like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then it's like charged all over.
I can relate to this completely. When I was just considering reacquiring sheer strength, I had all these ideas of things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I closed in the business and I'm like, what have I done?
It does feel that way some days for sure.
What have I done? This was a terrible idea. This did not make sense.
Yeah.
And then I got into the product formulation process and I just felt blissful. I loved the creation process of thinking about, I'm going to create this with this result for this person in a way that no one's ever done it in this industry before. And I can't wait. I just can't wait for people to have it. I can't wait for people to experience it.
That's what I think about a lot too.
The creative process of bringing that to life. And now I've created 3 or 4 different products and they're in production and I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs. And now I'm like, this was a terrible idea. What have I done? And so in order to snap out of that, I have to go back into the creative process where I'm thinking about the result this is going to create for someone else, not what it's going to do for me. Because I'm thinking about how I generate more sales so that I can look cool or I can be the $100 million entrepreneur that I believe that I am. Then I'm thinking about me and I'm draining the battery. But when I'm thinking about creating something that is infusing life into the world and I'm thinking about the customer that I'm doing it for, there's this life that comes alive in that process that you just want to bring to the world just because you want to see it exist.
Totally. I just want to see it exist. Yeah. And I totally agree with you there. Like, if anything, it's like, I want it just as bad as like the customer, if you like. So
yeah, the product itself, you mean?
Yeah. Like I want this like the idea I have, like I want it just as bad as like probably the customer. Like, so like, yeah, you were just talking about how you really want to bring it to the customers. It's like, I also just want it for myself that bad too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
So where I would like to take things to close is now that you've had this insight of I can operate at a different capacity than the mind.
Yes.
I'm sure there are days, I have days where the mind takes over.
Totally.
And you lose that intuitive, creative spark that is the whole reason why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you're using the business as a proxy to stay in that state now. But sometimes the mind takes over.
Totally.
And you get into selfish mode, you get into grind mode, you get into draining the battery mode. Now you've had an awareness that there is a different state possible. What do you do to counterbalance when the mind is taking over and draining that battery?
Yeah. I don't have, like you said, I don't have like a good systematic process, to be honest.
So we'll call each other when we figure it out.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. It's like, that's what my scorecard is for, for me to, because when I was in burnout, I wasn't aware of it until way after the fact. And so the scorecard is like a check, like, because like you said, the mind is a master of disguise. You can't even tell. It's like, you can't tell until at least for me, I can't tell until I'm at a point of like pure just despair.
Yeah, right.
That I'm like,
oh man, I went through this last week. I was at not quite to despair, but it was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I want out of this, right? I've been working really hard lately, rebuilding our sales processes and our product line. And I just hit that point of just a wall. And it was that I needed to call my friend in town and we need to go sauna, cold plunge, swim, because that pulls me right out of it. Right.
Yeah,
but within 4 hours, I am back to, I'm back to life. Baby,
okay. Yeah.
right?
Back to life. I thought you were about to say the other.
No, I'm back to like, I'm in my body.
Yeah.
My heart's open and I'm ready to go. But I don't hit it. Like, I don't know that until I hit that wall that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is back that up a little bit earlier.
Yes.
And say, when do I know it's coming? So that I can take care of it then and I can stay in a charged place. Yeah. You mentioned this scorecard that you're using. Rob Deerdeck shared with me that he has this daily scorecard where he just says he has these habits that he knows take me into that state or out of that state.
Yeah.
So he measures, did I drink alcohol this day? Because I know alcohol takes me out of it.
Takes it out of it, yeah.
Or did I have my morning meditation? Because I know that puts me in it. And he creates a scorecard and then he scores his overall life satisfaction and he looks for the correlations between those two.
That's exactly what I'm doing too.
You disciplined, logical people. I envy this part of you that you can do this.
I have only filled it out maybe 8 times since I started in like March. So I'm not that disciplined or logical. It's more of like, hey, I'm feeling a little weird. Maybe I should do the scorecard, see where I'm at. And then, that's.
So you know when you're out of it and what can pull you out of it, but you're still practicing.
Still practicing for sure. Because again, it was only since March that I really actually came to terms with all this, like on the same level that you're saying as well with all this. And the main thing for me is like, just get away from the screen. Like, and that also is like, I can tell when I'm slowing down in the day. And, sometimes I start the day and like, I always give it at least an hour. If I can't get into it in like an hour, then it's like, if my mind's got too much of a grip on me, then it's like, cancel everything, stay here. Like, I need to allocate more time. It's like, no, it's terrible. But it's like, I do walk away from it. Even just like this past week, to be honest, I did just walk away from it, like half walk away though.
Well, haven't you noticed, Andy, that when you're in the charged up state, like when your body, mind, spirit, whatever, when you're tapping into that other energy source, you get more done,
way more
in a day than you would get done in a week.
Easily.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
For me, it's like my content flows, my sales copy flows, my relationships flow, everything just works and I make sharp decisions. So sometimes just walking away from it is a really damn good idea.
I know it's hard but yeah, it is.
This is why I started doing the podcast in person versus over the screen. because when it's in front of the screen, it's just another thing for me to do.
That's true. Yeah.
But when we're in person here, there's a different energy that exists, and I leave with more energy. And I started doing things like prioritizing where there was energy richness.
Yes.
Because if I go there first,
Mhm.
then everything else just seems to kind of fall into place. But if I drain the battery, I don't even want to go to where there's energy
Yeah.
richness. I just want to
Just tap
I just
out.
want to eat pizza.
Yeah.
Just want to
Just
do
play
anything to
video
escape
games.
it, right? Anything to just distract myself
Mhm.
from it. So what you're reminding me of and inspiring me to do more of is to prioritize those things that on the surface don't make sense to the mind. But you're always glad when you do them because there is this whole other intelligence and energy source that lives in that. And my mind doesn't know how to describe that or understand that or intellectualize that, but it's like my body knows. And so I know that sounds frou-frou and weird, but we live in Austin and that's cool here.
But it's like the truth, honestly. Like, I don't know. There's something about it that once you're aware of it, it's a knowing, like, it's truth. Like,
What do you plan to do differently in the business this time
Mhm.
than the first time when you ran the company?
A lot differently. So one is not worry about optimizing things. So like, I'm not going to be focused on optimizing like our email and our copy and all this stuff. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to make great products and have it like good service. So like, it's a totally different lens, really. Like before it's like, how do you maximize profit and sales?
Yeah.
Now it's like, how do I just like make great product, provide great service, and yeah, really value like relationships with our customers and our influencers and just focus on that. And then whatever numbers we hit, I mean, as long as it's a healthy business, then it's all.
Yeah, I get that. And tell us a little bit about the business itself. Tell us where people you comfortable sharing website, where people can follow it, track along your journey.
Yeah, the business is called Elemental Knives, and that's the website, just elementalknives.com. Our social media right now hasn't posted since like January. I think everything looks very stale right now, and it's gonna look that way for a while because I don't care to do a bunch of work on nothing. Like we gotta have our new product in. And
I always tell people that I'm embarrassed if they look up sheer strength because it should be called shit strength right now.
Yeah.
Like, I bought a shitty company.
It's funny.
It's going to take some time.
It's funny because like a lot of people will tell me, oh, it looks so nice. Like, it's like,
No, it doesn't.
It's trash right now.
give me 6 months to redo the product line, redo the branding, redo the messaging,
redo everything.
and then we'll talk. Then you can look up sheer strength. It'll be less shitty.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Andy, I'm excited to see how this unfolds for you because it's been my observation that when you can align that deeper energy with the mind, it's rocket fuel. When you only act in intuition or body, it's like a good day-to-day experience, but it's not powerful in like the creative process. And when you're only operating in mind, you can build something great, but then you're drained and you burn out and you hate your life. But when you can align the two, if you can align the two, there is just magic that happens. So
100%.
I'm excited to watch.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Andy. Good to see you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I'm super proud of Andy, and I'm very thankful to be part of his journey. And I'm proud that he built a $4 million business. And I'm proud of him for having a meaningful exit. And I'm proud of him for buying his business back. But that's not why I wanted him on the show. I wanted him on the show because in some ways, he is a beautiful case study, both a warning and an example of what's possible. It's a warning of what happens if you drown out the part of you that wants to be creative, that wants to follow things that you find fun. And something that I'm learning, and sometimes life has to beat me up a bit to keep getting this lesson, is that the more that I can be in a fun mode, the more everything that I do is fun. And the more that I can be joyful, the more that bleeds out into every part of the business. And the more that customers respond to me because they want to have fun too, because they want to be happy. And yet most of us drown that out with more work. We drown that out with what we think is productive. Maybe I'm just projecting on all of you, but this has been true in my life. I actually beat myself up sometimes when I'm not working enough, or if I'm not if I don't have it that day, if I'm not producing more, but I produce the most when I'm in a good place. And Andy is also on the other side, this shining example of what's possible when you're in that place, because he got the idea for this business when he was out having fun. How many of us can relate to that? You get your best idea when you're just out having a great time, and then we drown it out with doubt and all the things that we think we need to do. Now, I've experienced this enough to know that it's true. The more that I'm in a fun place, the more I produce. So why do I force myself to be producing from a place of neediness or from a place of emptiness? Are we so afraid of us not getting the thing that's in our head? Do we want the thing so bad? Do we want the result so much? Do we want the freedom that we think is going to come on the other side of a result? Do we want that so bad that we force ourselves into action while the whole time tripping over the fact that we can actually enjoy the unfolding of the whole thing if we just prioritize the reason why we got into it in the first place? Or maybe I'm just wishful thinking. Either way, I'm really thankful and proud of Andy for coming and joining us. If you want a structure and a framework for building your seven-figure business, if you've got an interest, a passion, a joy, if you create content about things that you really find meaningful, if you have a group of people that you want to serve, what I can give you is a framework for making that a seven-figure business. It's 4 products at 25 sales a day at $30. That's 100 sales a day, $30 each, $3,000 a day, $1 million a year. We just got to bring in the pieces. And it's been my experience that the more that you can apply the framework to something that you find meaningful and energy rich, the faster you're going to get to 7 figures. So if you want help with that, go over to capitalism.com/1. You can find out what we do, and you can get plugged in on your road to 1 million. I'm Ryan Moran with capitalism.com. Thanks for watching.